Continue this conversation with our panel, political strategist Rina Shah, along with the head of Vote Save America and VP of Political Strategy at Crooked Media, Shaniqua McClendon. Welcome, both of you. And Shaniqua, let's start with you. I want to get to President Biden. He is set to speak for the first time tomorrow night from the Oval at 8 p.m. Eastern since all of this unfolded. Of course, since he announced that he is exiting the race. What will you be watching for? What will you expect?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're going to see is him reiterate his support for Vice President Kamala Harris. Soon after his announcement that he was stepping down, he let everyone know that he had full faith in her to lead the party into the election in this November. I think he's also going to lay out his record. I think as we've been having this entire conversation about, whether or not he should stay in the race or step down, no one's ever questioned his record, but it will be really important for him to emphasize it, but also point to the really important role that the vice president has played in executing on that agenda.
And Rina, Harris has already secured the support of a majority of state delegates, raising $100 million. Robert Sherman was just pointing out that only took a couple of days. We see her campaigning in Wisconsin today. Is it a foregone conclusion that Dems have their new nominee in her?
I believe it is, because she's amassed a number of delegates that's needed to secure the nomination. But the important part here is that all of these delegates are pledged, but they're not bound. And so the door is still somewhat open. In her own statement on the day that Joe Biden announced he was stepping aside, she said that she plans to earn this nomination, and that's her intent. And I thought that was a finely worded statement by her. In fact, it makes Democrats look good to want to invite the prospect of an open convention, or a convention in which dissent could be welcomed, because again, it's democracy in action. It's messy, but it's beautiful, and it could really look good for the Democrats at a time where the Republicans, yes, certainly look united, but aren't proposing really positive solutions. J.D. Vance speaking last night for the first time on his own, a lot of his speech fell flat. So that dynamic nature of what you would expect from Republicans could really face a tough time when, as the Democrats roll into a convention that seems to be really focused and fostering a really good mutual exchange here of ideas and an openness in essence.
And Shaniqua, I know you're the head of Vote Save America. It's an organization that's really dedicated to turning out the vote. What are you hearing from people in your orbit about Harris as a candidate, about her campaign? Has this reinvigorated volunteers and voters?
Absolutely. We've seen 8,000 new people sign up to volunteer through our Organize or Else program, and that happened over the course of 2 days. We also raised about $250,000 on Sunday. This is, a day where my whole team is off of work. We're not harassing people to donate or volunteer, but people sought us out because they were excited and they wanted to plug into this campaign. Admittedly, before Sunday, it had been hard to get people to want to sign up to volunteer and do these things. And so for us to see this inpouring of interest and enthusiasm without even, having sent out an email, well, we did send out an email, but people still coming to us before we sent out that email has been really promising. And as much as, I think me and my direct peers who work in politics, we're going to vote for Joe Biden regardless, I think there's something to be said about enthusiasm amongst people who are not paying attention to politics every day. To see this groundswell of support and excitement from people all across the country, I think is really promising. And I think it says a lot about people's excitement about Kamala Harris. And, we'll see where it goes, but it feels like her campaign is headed in the right direction.
I appreciate you sharing those numbers. It's really interesting. And Rina, I know you mentioned J.D. Vance. Let's talk more about the former President Trump's running mate here. He made his first solo appearance on the campaign trail yesterday. Let's listen quickly to what Vance had to say.
The idea of selecting the Democrat Party's nominee because George Soros and Barack Obama and a couple of elite Democrats got in a smoke-filled room and decided to throw Joe Biden overboard, that is not how it works. That is a threat to democracy, not the Republican Party, which is fighting for democracy every single day.
Serena, this is really interesting. We are hearing this growing line of attack that Democrats are essentially taking the decision over their nominee away from voters. It is an attack on democracy. It is undemocratic. How persuasive of an argument is this?
Well, it may work with the most fringe part of the base, but I think the name of the game here, as we've long talked about, is to try to persuade independently minded voters, particularly those in these 7 swing states. These independent voters and center right voters aren't buying that shtick because it is a little bit extreme, and it's frankly strategically a bit off message. I don't know why JD Vance really needs to go there, but I think I do want to mention to our audience one thing. The National Task Force for Election Crises has put out a fantastic statement. And this is a nonpartisan org of some of our nation's best and preeminent voting experts. So I would encourage folks to go read the full statement. But it says something to the effect of, when a major party's presumptive nominee pulls out, it does create a bit of anxiety, but everybody should be reassured that this is well within the bounds of electoral law, and there are curbs and processes and procedures that make all of this acceptable under the governing documents of the Democratic Party. And so people ought not to be afraid or have any kind of fear or be misled into thinking this is anti-democratic, small d, of course, our representative democracy I'm talking about, or that it's disenfranchising voters who voted for Biden in the primaries. This is a completely normal process. This is a fine moment in which I think I'm excited. Clearly, many voters out there are energized by this nod that Harris has earned from President Biden, and they're rolling into this convention trying to figure out how to, get their party looking unified. But the real message here is that this is normal. This is what conventions are for, and there's still a lot of time between now and August 19th when Democrats meet in Chicago for this all to get sorted out. Fine, but the reality is Biden is still the president. Vice President Harris is still the vice president. She just happens to now be campaigning to be the next president of the United States of America.
Right. And Rina, I appreciate that. And Shaniqua, let's end with this. Some political experts saying that Kamala Harris will need to garner support from a coalition that looks less like the one that elected President Biden and really more like the one that carried former President Obama to the White House twice. We heard Robert Sherman talking about the blue wall here and, the polling still favoring Trump in those states. What does this path to victory look like for Kamala Harris, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, she is going to have to win in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But I think with her being at the top of the ticket, it brings Georgia back into the conversation in a way that it had started to slip out. Depending on her vice president selection, say it's Mark Kelly, for instance, I think that creates an opportunity to just increase the chances and likelihood of her winning in places like Arizona. North Carolina, I am from there. There's a lot of excitement there. The state party chair there used to work for Kamala Harris on her campaign. So people are really excited, and particularly in the South where you see more people of color, I think that they are now paying attention. This may be something that has gotten their eye, and there will be a lot more enthusiasm on the ground. And if I just may, on, JD Vance and these accusations that Democrats are subverting democracy, we need only look at January 6th. I think it's ridiculous that they keep acting as if that day didn't happen.
All right, Shaniqua McClendon, Rina Shah, really appreciate you both making the time today for this panel. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Still to